So I was on a Skype call with my friend Jeff last night, and he told us he decided he had this really funny joke. And this is kind of how it went. Hey guys, it's Cool Jeffrey from the Cool Jeffrey Show. I have this really cool joke. Oh, okay, what is it? So you know how people were talking about, like, when something is really kind of like it's not gonna happen. You say, like, when pigs fly. Yeah. Well, that now there's it's swine flu. Haha, get it? Flu? No.
It's Newsday Tuesday.
Alright, so this is obviously about swine flu. As I'm sure everyone knows, the first cases were popping up in Mexico, and it has made its way into the US, Canada, France, Spain, New Zealand, all over, China, and so far in the US there haven't been any, as of the time I'm making this video, there haven't been any deaths in the US, but they're predicting that will probably change. The WHO is saying that we should expect it to get a lot worse before it gets any better, which sucks. But swine flu is a respiratory disease caused by the influenza A virus that is common in pigs and doesn't usually make its way into humans. However, it does every once in a while, such as right now. And they're saying that how they think this got to us was workers in tiny little remote villages in Mexico were working with pigs all the time. That's all they did, and so they picked it up from the pigs, and then it spread to different areas, and it made its way to the U.S. by people who had been traveling to Mexico and came back, or people who came from Mexico to here, in California, Texas, New York, and Kansas, Ohio. I think there are a few more states. So far, from the reports I've seen, there are, I believe, about 64 reported cases in the U.S. It's the majority of which, over half, it's probably about 75% of which are in New York. There's, I believe, 6 in Texas, 1 in Ohio, like 10 in California, something like that. So it's fairly spread out, but no one has died yet, and 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 a lot of them have recovered. So the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, has put out multiple reports on how you can detect swine flu, what the signs and symptoms are, all kinds of information about it, the incubation period, what to do to protect yourself, to prevent it, what to do if you figure out that you have it, how quickly you should go to the doctor, etc., etc. And they're reporting that the incubation period is only about 24 hours, which in a way is a good thing, because then you can detect it quickly. If you find you do have it, they recommend that you basically self-quarantine. You don't go to classes, don't go to work, etc. And if you find yourself in an area, if you are not infected, and you find yourself in an area where there's a lot of infection, they recommend a face mask. They say the signs and symptoms include sore throat, runny nose, fever, chills, and basically a lot of symptoms that are associated with a regular flu. And so I can imagine that doctors are going to have a really hard time, especially with people suddenly realizing, oh, maybe maybe they just have allergy symptoms, because a lot of those are also consistent with allergies. But, since the swine flu outbreak has happened, people are, I'm sure, going to be going in all the time and flooding doctors' offices and such, which, may or may not be a bad thing. The CDC has put out a report saying that if you do have it, it can be treated pretty easily with these 2 different drugs. And the people who have died because of it, it was either because they had waited so long that they were at sort of an advanced stage of pneumonia and they just could not be cured, or they didn't even go to the doctor at all and they didn't have any medical help. also, since the swine flu can exacerbate existing underlying conditions, it's also entirely possible that people can die because the swine flu kind of causes a flare-up of, a worse existing medical condition that they already have. The steps that the CDC recommends for preventing contracting swine flu are pretty normal. Just, wash your hands, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer as often as possible. Don't cover your mouth when you sneeze or when you cough, and try to avoid coming in contact with people who have swine flu. And for more information, go to cdc.gov, and you can find information on the disease itself, on preparedness, on all these things that I've talked about. Alright, that's it for today's Newsday Tuesday. I will see you next week.